I'm here with the one and only Michael Angelo Batio, who is here to record Sign of the Hammer and music for the 2025 album as well.
That's
But
right.
you kindly agreed to take a break to talk about your amazing and inspiring career. So, Mike, hi, and thank you for your time.
Hi, Suzanne. Yeah, it's good to be here.
It's always
Love
great to
recording.
have you here. We're always excited, and everyone who had the privilege to take a little peek into what's going on in the studio is very, very excited.
Yes, yes.
And we can't wait to share that with the fans. But before we do that, we'd love to find out more about your incredible and truly inspiring career from the early days to the big stages that you are playing these days and anything in between. How about we start at the very beginning?
We lived in an apartment, and my dad was in construction. My mom was raising me and my sister was 2 years younger than me. So at 5 years old, my parents got this electric organ, like a home organ, and my mom would play this song. It was called My Wild Irish Rose, just a traditional song. And so I was just sitting at this organ, and I figured out the song. And my mom's like, "Well, where'd you learn that?" And I said, "Well, I watched you." I didn't have every chord. She used more chords than me, but I had the whole melody and I had the whole outline of the song. And from that point on, I was really interested in music. And I was born with the ability to draw. Art runs in my mom's side of the family. There were artists dating back to the 1800s. I actually have pictures that they've painted and pen and ink hanging up in my house.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, dated like, 1870, 1880. And I have a drawing book of my like great-great-grandfather. So, we're an artistic family. And I inherited both, but I chose to go into music. I felt I liked it more and I felt I was better at it. And so at 5, I liked piano, I liked the organ, I studied. As I got to be around 9 or 10, the music I listened to had guitars. So when I was 10 years old, I was like, "Dad, can I get a guitar?" And he didn't know if I could play. He didn't know if I was interested or not. I'm a 10-year-old kid. And so I'm left-handed, and there were no left-handed guitars. So we went into this local, it was actually a store called Woolworths. I don't even think they're around anymore. But anyway, there were these guitars that were hanging up, and they were maybe $25, $30, but it was still a lot of money
It was a lot of money back then.
yeah, for a 10-year-old kid to start playing. I always gravitated towards this way to play, like Paul McCartney or guitar players later, Kurt Cobain. My dad said, "Son, you can have a great advantage if you play guitar right-handed, being a left-handed person." Translation: if you want to learn how to play guitar, you've got one choice: you play right-handed. So anyway, my dad got me the guitar, and I remember my first guitar lesson like it was yesterday. My dad got me an amp because my birthday is in June. I started in June when I was 10 years old, so it was a birthday present. And he got me this Japanese guitar called a Taisco, which is actually kind of cool now. They're collectibles. I'm not going to say it's a $20,000 guitar, but I wish I had these guitars. I had like 2 or 3 of them over the course of my life. And then my dad got me a little amplifier, Gibson Skylark amp. They're actually valuable now. I remember my guitar teacher showing me 4 chords, and it was C, G7, D7, and G. D7 was kind of hard for me. It's the hardest one. It was 3 fingers down, and they were all in the first position. And I remember to this day, I heard those 4 chords in a random order, and I put them together in a song for the next week. I went G, G7, C, D7, G, and my teacher said, "Well, how did you come up with that?" And I said, "Seemed the proper way." So it just seemed like this is how it should be. So from that point on, guitar came easily for me. And I knew at 10 years old I was going to be a professional musician. There was never a backup plan. My dad wanted me, he was in construction, he wanted me to go in the family business. I tried, I didn't like it. There's this thing where they say 90% of just being successful in life is just showing up. And so I would just do stuff. For example, when I was in 7th grade, now I'm 12 years old, I had already been playing guitar for a couple of years. And by this time I had a paper route, and I got a Fender Mustang, which was it was a beginner guitar, but it was cool. And it had a wang bar on it. And I got a buzz box, so I had distortion. And I had a little tape recorder. I would tape rhythms and then play leads to it, just like people do today, much more low tech. But I would play in front of my 7th grade class. So they had like this variety show in my grade school. I was in 5th grade. And I got a band together and played Secret Agent Man, this old surf song. And so we had a rhythm guitarist. I was the lead. Our bass player played guitar. And he didn't want to play bass. Like, I don't like bass. It's got 4 strings. I want 6 strings. And our drummer, Scott, was a 6th grader, and we thought he was the old man of the band, So we were the young guys, only a year apart. My bass player friend, Kirk, he looked really cool. Not that he wasn't talented, he just didn't know how to play. And so we had him off. We had him plugged into an amp, but he had no volume. And I said, Kirk, just get in the middle and look cool. So he had the holding the bass low. So we had the star power. I'll never forget it. I played in front of the entire school. I put the guitar behind my back. And at the end of the show, I'm thinking, this is the worst show I've ever done. It's the only show I'd ever done. And this girl came up to me and she goes, I thought that was really good. I'm like, yes.
First groupie.
And so it was my first show. From that point on, I would go out and play. I got in bands as a little kid. Now, there were more choices when I was growing up because everybody played an instrument. It's not quite like that today. It was like the normal thing to take guitar lessons or drum lessons or piano. And so I was in bands from 5th grade on. I studied jazz when I was taking guitar lessons. So I auditioned for the jazz band. No one showed up but me in my entire school. All the hundreds of guitar players, no one showed up but me. And the guy gives me the music, the instructor, I couldn't read it because it would say C triangle 7. I've never seen that in my life. I had no idea what those meant, and I couldn't play the charts. And I go, I don't really know this. I said, but I'll learn it. And he goes, you're in. And so I went to the local music store where I was taking lessons. I didn't take lessons anymore. That's a whole other story. I only took lessons for a couple of years. But anyway, I go to the music store. I go, what the heck is this? And he starts laughing. He goes, the triangle is major. See, when I learned C major 7th, there was C, MAJ 7. Well, some people write a triangle. I didn't know this, but I knew the chords. I didn't know these were symbols for chords I already knew. So I was like, I'm in. This is it. But it's just one of the things that I've done in my life. And I found I practiced really hard. I was in bands. I always tried to have the look of rock and roll. I just gravitated towards that. And then one thing leads to another that leads to another. And early in my life, I told myself, I'm going to be a professional, going to tour around the world, and I'm moving to California. That was the dream, and I did it. A lot of things. You hear Jim Carrey, you hear a lot of people talking about envisioning. I like anyone who's out doing it. I don't really care what style of music or what movie they do. Tom Cruise said something interesting. When they talked about these incredible stunts, he goes, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I just start and I figure out a way. And I agree with that. You just start. It's like writing a song or like we're recording. I was doing acoustic guitar. We tracked this thing. We listened. One of the parts was not what we want. So after the interview, I go and track it again. You just start it and then it ends up getting finished.
People only see the success like Michael Jordan or an actor and on and on and on. I find it very inspiring. Everyone that's ever successful has had their share of failures, whether it's failure because you're just not there yet or something's not working out.
That's right. There's an idea that, every year we have New Year's resolutions. Well, I used to do that when I was younger. Now my New Year's resolution is to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm at the point in my career where, it's like the pinnacle. But I worked really hard to get there, and I don't let up. Every day you have to kind of prove it. And what I try to do with myself is just focus on the art. I actually almost framed my first rejection notice from a major label. It turned out to be a guy named Ron Fair, who discovered Christina Aguilera and Orianthi. We sent a demo to him when I first moved to California. I knew we weren't ready, and I was scared to death. But We went for it. Yeah, we got rejected. Well, I got accepted 2 times after that on the Warner Brothers labels. I know what it's like to be rejected, but and I also know what it's like to almost quit. I almost went back home to Chicago.